It's been very cold, which is good for cycling, but not for the global situation. So, cycling in Oslo used to be normal, like everywhere else. These are a few pictures from the way it used to be before the automobile started dominating the streets in the 1960s. And then cycling basically vanished. There were some protests, and the first cycle network master plan was already made in the late 1970s. But a lack of funding and later also a lack of political will to prioritize has left this network incomplete. So on average, since 2005, the city has only built 1.5 kilometers of new bicycle infrastructure each year. But 4 years of broken promises, those days are over. We have a new city government that has very high ambitions. 25% bicycle modal share in 2025 is the ambition. And the lady on the photo is my boss. She's the vice mayor of transport in Oslo. She was elected last year from the Green Party. The situation today is not that bad. We have a bicycle modal share of 8%, and when you look at all the green travels, we're actually doing okay. So what we want to reduce is the light green share of car travels. Last year, a new bicycle strategy was enacted by actually a unanimous city council. Everyone agrees that cycling is good. Before making this strategy, or a part of making it, was doing some investigations, some surveys to figure out what is the situation today, what needs to be done. These investigations discovered that there is a massive potential in Oslo to make people cycle. People want to cycle. 2/3 of the population wants to cycle or to cycle more than they do. This is the average cyclist in Oslo in 2013. It's basically a man in his 40s doing long distance, high speed commuting in Lycra. It is changing, but this was the situation in 2013. You can also see that there are vast differences between the city districts. You have the immigrant-heavy district of Alna with 1% bicycle modal share, and you have the hipster district of Grünerløkka with about 15% modal share. So there are really vast differences in the city. 6%, that is the number of the group of potential cyclists that agreed with that statement. Only 6% find cycling in Oslo to be safe. What's important to remember is that this is how safe they feel. It's not the statistical safety. That is not always, does not always correlate. When you look at these photos, I guess you kind of understand why people don't find it safe. We have about 200 kilometers of bicycle infrastructure, mostly painted bike lanes, some of them next to parked cars. They're poorly maintained, or they used to be. I'll get back to that. And they disappear whenever there's a bus stop or an intersection. So the surveys we did showed that people weren't satisfied with this, and they don't feel safe using the bicycle infrastructure already in place. So our number one task is to make people feel safer. And as you can see, that's also what they say themselves. Safer will make them cycle more. So we're making a new cycle path master plan. And of course, the people in Oslo were thinking, yeah, right, 525 kilometers, you couldn't even finish the 180 you've had for 40 years. But people are starting to actually get that we're serious about this. So yeah, the suggested plan is a lot denser than the former one, higher quality, and Yeah, and 525 kilometers. What we're also doing is we're making our own best practice design guide for building bicycle infrastructure because the national standards are not good enough. So we're basically doing the job the Norwegian National Roads Administration should have done. This best practice design guide, we're very much inspired by Holland and Denmark. So as you can see, we're starting to implement contraflow bike lanes to increase the competitive, to make it easier and faster to cycle. We're also going to build the Danish-style bike lane with a curb because that's the way to make people both feel safe and actually be safe. And also bicycle streets where cars are guests. And yeah, as you can see, these contraflow bike lanes. The next 3 years we're building, or not necessarily building, but we're making 60 kilometers of new bicycle infrastructure. And a lot of these 60 kilometers is basically this, reallocating space to the bicycle, removing on-street car parking. We're going to remove 1,300 on-street car parkings. And this is the biggest difference between the former government and the new one. The former, they were pro-cycling, but not removing car parking. The new one, they say remove it. So that makes our job very much easier. What we're also doing is upgrading the infrastructure that we already have. We're maximizing the width of the bike lanes to make them feel safer and be safer. We're putting a red surface to make them more visible, and we are putting new asphalt to increase comfort and also traffic safety. We're also implementing a higher standard maintenance all year, fixing potholes in summer, sweeping and clearing snow and ice in winter. We didn't have money for this before, but last year we were given about 2 million euros for this. So we've really managed to up the standard. I think everyone in this room knows that cycle-friendly streets are a precondition for making people cycle more. But that's not always enough. So we are doing a lot of stuff with communication and campaigns to nudge people into changing these hard-grown habits that they tend to have. And I'm going to talk too much about this, but for us it's very important to show that cycling is normal. It's not, you don't need all this gear. We're always pictured without helmets and we get shit for it, but we don't care because we know that showing photos of people with the helmets that doesn't make people want to cycle. So and the types of campaigns we do is we give away studded tires in winter. We offer free bike repair in summer, and yeah, really stuff that nudge people, not just like poster campaigns saying, "Hey, cycling is good." This is our most successful type of nudging. It's our city bikes. We've had city bikes for about 10 years, but this year we have new ones. And 3 times as many. So now there's about 3,000 bikes, 6,000 locks on 300 racks. And 1.7 million trips so far this year. It's about twice as much as last year. 45,000 subscribers. So it's really increasing in popularity, despite that we had to increase the fee. It's like 300 kroner, like 30 euros for a season. And it used to be 10, but that haven't had any effect on the amount. Another important decision was to make the city center car-free in 2020, within 2020. Also we have a toll ring to increase the fees and also to implement congestion charges. And of course we're removing the amount of car parking. So all of this helps make people change their habits. And also the city's impressive public transport system is being further developed. And as you can see here, all these measures are working. Compared to last year, we've had an increased 16% in bicycle traffic. And after we implemented a higher standard maintenance in the winter, we had a 38% increase in bicycle traffic in winter. So it's fun to work with when you have numbers like this. Yeah. On that positive note, I want to thank you for listening. How was the time?
Yeah, excellent.
Spot on.
Good.
Esther?
We have a discussion at the end.
Okay.
So, yeah, not now. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, can you please try it again? It's here, it's here. I found it. Esther, it's here. Sorry.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you especially to the organizers and Seymour for hosting. It's great to be here again. It was a few years I was here in a Cycling and Politics conference with Dave organizing as well. And I have to say, that was the trigger for me to go for a PhD in the end. So this has made an impact on me. And this is actually my favorite event in terms of what we are speaking and sharing here. So thank you all for coming as well. I would like to talk to you about a project that is called PASTA Project, in which I'm doing my PhD. So this is a big European project, 14 partners all over Europe, and I'm doing my research in a bit of it, one of the aspects that the project is generating. But think about it as a huge initiative. It's going to generate a lot of data, and actually the challenge is to actually define what I want to do and how I want to do it. So this is my attempt that I want to present to you and see what you think about it. So the whole project comes from a health perspective. It was from health funding. So we're looking into connecting transport and health in cities, and most of the partnership is health-related research. So this is the background I'm moving. You have to remember that, because all the model I will present talks in that kind of language, in health language. And we know now that active mobility, for which we understand cycling and walking, but also public transport, because people, to take the public transport, have to do some kind of exercise, so that's also included right now. There's evidence for that as well. And that is very beneficial for health. They provide exercise, reduce the accidents, improve social contact, and reduce circulation. Okay, so we have evidence, that's for sure. Okay, so now the challenge is actually, how can we take this evidence into practice? How can we make this happen? This is what PASTA, the whole project, is it's about. And for me, this is the most important bit of it, and I think for the European Commission and other funding and donors, it's also like this. So we're doing research, but in the end, we want to make it useful. How do we do it? It's in health studies, it's called translational research. So when you have these numbers, this evidence, how do you take it to policy making and then to reality? So the approach of the project is using different tools, different research modules to study this link between health and transport. The one I'm going to use is actually the biggest, the most time-consuming and funding-consuming of the project. It's this longitudinal survey that is running for 2 years, and in each of the 7 cities participating in the project, we are aiming for 2,000 participants. I will show you some figures later. But in the project, there are many things going on. There are a lot of other modules. We have the stakeholder engagement analyzed via workshops and interviews. We have collection of good practice, and we also have a big module on health impact assessment, including personal exposure and tracking and all these kind of more exposure-related and health-related studies. So, as I said, large consortium, these 7 cities here And already some publications, if you want to explore more about the protocol of the whole project or of the survey itself, and then there's this systematic review showing actually the evidence of the health impact assessment for cycling and active mobility in general. And then I would like to show you, how are we now? So in this big survey, we are getting there. The final question is the 28th November, and we're actually, a couple of cities are touching the 2000, and we're actually getting there, getting a big sample of people answering this questionnaire. So before I move on to this one, just to explain you how the survey works. You have a big questionnaire at the beginning, which is the baseline questionnaire. It's a half-an-hour online questionnaire, and then we have follow-ups every 3 weeks during 2 years. That doesn't mean everyone follows the whole 2-year scope of the project. Some people getting later and go out, get tired of so many follow-ups. So we'll have a lot of different participants also in that sense. So how is the data for London? Particularly for me, it's been very valuable engaging with the stakeholders. That has given me the proper knowledge on what is going on and what people need and what people understand and what people think they understand as well. So for us, if we want to translate evidence into policymaking, this is one of the most important bits of the project on my view. But the thing is that the project was not think to take this into account. It's a health-related project, and the study was not actually looking into the social aspect. That has created a lot of, oh, this is very relevant, but oops, we don't have budget. Let's try to study it, but in a way that allows us to bring it into the project. We're really struggling to get involved with this. I'm personally very engaged in trying to get this into work. Showing you a bit of the data for London. It's raw data, so just for you to know, more or less, for you to imagine, I pick up London because it's going to be, of course, my case study, but also because it's maybe more familiar to you, some of you at least. And just to show you, we have more females than males. That in a cycling-related survey is quite interesting. It's not the usual thing that happens. We have quite a nice age distribution if we think that it's an online survey. So it's quite representative also of older ages that normally is the average for those surveys. So we're quite happy with that as well. We're also happy with the income distribution, which also touches all kinds of income, so it's great. But then for the educational level, we have clearly a bias for higher education. It's probably because of the channels we've used as a lot of academic channels. I could show you lots of things, and I really want to move on as quickly as possible. But just to show you that in London, we actually have people cycling with all kinds of frequency and people using car in all kinds of frequency. So that's going to be also really interesting. It's quite biased to active mobility users,